Tonight, Scotland's housing crisis. Too few affordable homes to go round and too many people trying to get them. 1 in 4 are now living in unsuitable conditions. We'll look at what it's like for those stuck in the system.
I've got 10 more years of this. I can't handle it. And not being able to go outside and meet friends, not be able to just go for a walk to the garden to feed the birds.
Also making the headlines, an XL bully dog is shot 6 times by police after an attack in South Lanarkshire.
As parking charges are set to increase, businesses in Glasgow warn rising costs will drive people away from the city centre. And in sport, the Rangers captain James Tavernier says the players always believed they could catch Celtic as they move to the top of the Premiership.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Scotland is in the midst of a housing crisis. More than a quarter of households are in some form of housing need, according to the most recent statistics. And since a dedicated housing minister was appointed almost a year ago, 3 councils have declared housing emergencies due to mounting pressures. Other authorities are warning they will be next.
So what is going wrong? The main issue is a shortage of affordable homes, which is not coping with demand. The latest census shows Scotland's population has grown slightly due to migration to 5.4 million. But the rise of 2.7% is lower than elsewhere in the UK. So, if there has not been a great increase in the number of people living here, why is there a shortage of homes for everyone to live in? Around 250,000 people, that's almost 5% of the population, currently sit on a social housing waiting list. But there are fewer homes to go round. Policies such as Right to Buy saw more than 500,000 homes sold, and what has followed is decades of budget cuts and underinvestment in new builds. Over the next few days, our reporter Vanessa Taff will explore these problems and any potential solutions.
There are 66 steps to and from Kirsty's front door, but they leave her physically exhausted, struggling to breathe.
I've left the house once this year on the 6th of January. You just feel so alone and desperate.
Living with a chronic illness, Kirsty's home in Edinburgh isn't suitable for her medical needs. And she's just been told the waiting list for a new one is 10 years.
You know, my initial thought was I'll probably be dead by then. I don't know what to do. I was gobsmacked. 10 years. I can't handle it. And not being able to go outside and meet friends, not be able to just go for a walk to the garden to feed the birds, and the isolation. Yeah, just the difficulty in the kind of keeping yourself together altogether, you know, the what's the point?
Under the current criteria, Kirsty isn't considered to be in housing need.
It was very, very soul-destroying, given that I thought I got my point across as to how unwell I was, the medical evidence that's there. There was no information on the email whatsoever about ability to appeal this or who can I contact to challenge the fact that I've been assessed as a mover when I cannot breathe.
Edinburgh is one of 3 council areas that have declared a housing emergency, meaning there aren't enough suitable, stable homes. The latest report shows almost 700,000 families in Scotland are in housing need. That's more than official Scottish Government figures have accounted for, as current methods only include those in acute need, not those like Kirsty, who are in an unfit property.
The definition of need has become stricter and stricter. You can argue about, a hierarchy of needs, starting with those that are homeless or in temporary accommodation, down to maybe single young adults who are living with their parents but who want to leave home. So you can argue that there's a hierarchy of need, but there is still that need that needs to be accounted for in official figures.
The housing budget has been cut by £200 million for this year and next, putting affordable solutions to the housing crisis
in doubt.
If we want to stop the trajectory of the housing deficit, we need to do something. And housing affects people's educational attainment, their mental well-being. It has such repercussions, and on the economy, because we can't create jobs if there's not houses for people to live in.
The Scottish Government say they've delivered more affordable homes per head of population than other parts of the UK.
We recognise there are difficult challenges at this time. We're working fully with partners in that regard. Obviously, we've got the context of coming out of COVID, Brexit, cost of living, construction costs.
Since our filming, Edinburgh Council have reviewed Kirsty's circumstances. She's been told she's now on a priority list, but that move is likely to take quite some time.
Vanessa joins us now. So Vanessa, you've outlined the scale of the problem. What are the long-term solutions?
Well, there are multiple solutions, but it's just taking the Scottish Government and the relevant local authorities quite some time to catch up to the scale of this crisis. Over the coming days and weeks, we're going to be looking at some of those solutions. So, for example, things like the way that we build new houses, and things like how can technology play a role in improving the existing stock that we already have. Now, today there's a bunch of campaigners calling for the First Minister and for the Scottish Government to declare a Scotland-wide housing emergency. So we already know that 3 local authorities have declared localised emergencies, but they say that there needs to be immediate, urgent action.
Just at the point where we think the Scottish Government should be doing more, they've decided to do far less. And we find it staggering that so many people, local authorities, all saying the same thing, that urgent action is required. And what we've got at the moment from Scottish Government is only warm words.
So Vanessa, what kind of impact is this crisis having on people?
Well, it's feeding into the wider crisis that we're seeing at the minute. So, for example, the mental health impacts of someone like Kirsty, who hasn't been able to leave their house for weeks on end. You can imagine the toll that would take on you. And it's having a huge impact on the NHS. Can you imagine as well the physical impacts of living in a poorly maintained or a bad quality home? It's one thing that people are saying to us time and time again as we've been covering this, is that they feel like no one is listening to them. Words like anger, frustration, helplessness and soul destroying keep coming up as people are telling us about the circumstances they're facing because of where they live.
And more of your reports to come. Vanessa, thank you.
Police Scotland say they have shot and killed a large bulldog type of dog that injured 3 people after attacking another dog. STV News understands the animal that's been destroyed is in fact an XL bully type, and it had recently been moved to Scotland to evade the ban on the breeds in England. Well, Peter Smith is at the scene for us tonight.
This is a popular area for dog walkers to take their pets out in the Mannering area of East Kilbride, and yesterday morning just after 10 a.m, neighbours here tell me they heard the unmistakable sound of a dog yelping. They say they'd looked out their window and there was a large bulldog type dog attacking another collie type dog. Now, we can report that this was an XL bully dog attack on a 14-year-old collie dog well known in this area, and we can also report that the XL bully had recently been brought to Scotland from England to evade the ban on XL bully dogs in England. Now, the police are not confirming this. They're saying that they will confirm the breed of the dog after an investigation, and we also know an 18-year-old woman has been referred to the Procurator Fiscal in relation to potential offences relating to the Dangerous Dogs Act. But I've spoken to people in this area. In fact, one 17-year-old boy who was a hero in the moment, he had witnessed this happening outside his window. He ran straight to the scene, prized the XL bully's jaws open. He was injured. There were 2 other people injured during this dog attack. And then it was about 15 minutes later, after he was pinning the dog down, that the police arrived on the scene, and we can report that the XL bully dog, a decision was made to destroy the XL bully dog. It was shot several times. Now, this dog was not muzzled. It does not yet need to be muzzled legally in Scotland, but there are a number of dogs who've been brought from England to Scotland to evade the ban there, where dogs, XL bully dogs of this type, do already need to be muzzled. And it will be Friday of this week that the rules change in Scotland legislation introduced to say that XL bully dogs like this do need to be muzzled when in public, and it will become illegal to sell or gift XL bully dogs in Scotland as well. There is some positive news to report, that there was a chance here that this could have been 2 dogs killed. The heroics of this 17-year-old boy saved the life of the collie, and I've spoken to the owners of that 14-year-old collie tonight, and they tell me that remarkably the dog is uninjured and making a full recovery.
Peter Smith there. To other stories, and the First Minister says the SNP would not support the Labour Party's proposals to increase windfall tax on oil and gas firms. Hamza Yusuf described the proposals as creating real anger. Labour say they'd increase the tax to help support future green investment.
As we've heard from industry experts, could cost up to 100,000 jobs. And of course they've done that while dumping their £28 billion green prosperity fund. So not only are they effectively bringing a cliff edge for the oil and gas industry, which is important for Scotland, they're also cutting off our future in terms of our just transition to net zero, and that's unacceptable.
At every stage, we must maintain the consent of working people. Show we understand that the economic stability they need in their lives, that is non-negotiable. It's not good enough to say we'll do something popular if that stability can't be delivered alongside it.
And activists occupied the royal dining room at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh earlier as part of an ongoing campaign to slash food prices. 9 campaigners from This Is Rigged entered the palace around 1 o'clock this afternoon. They have since left.
With the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsening, the SNP is calling for the House of Commons to back an immediate ceasefire in a vote later this week. It's a view supported by families here in Scotland, desperately trying to keep in touch with those who have fled to Rafah.
It's feared Israel could mount a ground offensive against the last place of refuge for more than 1 million Palestinians. Our Westminster correspondent Paris Gurtsayanis reports.
From her home in Edinburgh, Sarah struggles to stay in touch with family trapped in Gaza.
I was saying you can't call this number at the moment. Sometimes I just go from number to number, just hope that, one of them will work.
Among them, her cousin Anas, 6 months old. Almost all he's known is war.
And I just hope that he would have a better future, he would have a future, he would be able to live through this war.
Like so many civilians living in Gaza, Sarah's family have had to flee again and again, searching for shelter and safety.
But this is my grandparents' house. It's been bombed maybe about 2 months ago. But this is, they're saying at least this is better than a tent, there is some sort of a structure.
In Gaza, a bombed out house is better than no house at all. 1.4 million Palestinians forced from their homes have crowded into Rafah on the border with Egypt. It's as if the entire population of Glasgow, Edinburgh and Aberdeen came looking for shelter in Dundee. Aid agencies say there is no functioning hospital and not enough food.
My family have been in Rafah for the past few weeks because this was the safe zone, or this is what was told to them that, go south. Life at the moment is very, very hard.
Now Israel is threatening a ground offensive on Rafah unless Hamas releases all remaining hostages by the start of Ramadan in 3 weeks' time.
Life has never been easy in Gaza at all. And now they find themselves in this situation that they know that they might not live through it.
For the second time since the conflict erupted, the SNP is pushing for the House of Commons to back an immediate ceasefire in a vote on Wednesday. The last time Westminster voted on Gaza, 56 Labour MPs rebelled in a major challenge to Keir Starmer's leadership. But speaking at the Scottish Labour conference yesterday, Mr Starmer signalled the party could back a ceasefire this time.
A ceasefire that lasts, conference, that is what must happen now. The fighting must stop now.
This isn't about myself or Keir Starmer or the Labour Party and the SNP. This is about people in Gaza. They are under bombardment from the Israeli Defence Force. It needs to stop. There needs to be an immediate ceasefire. Enough is enough.
Sarah's message to the politicians is clear.
History will remember, and unfortunately Britain is complicit in this, so this is the time to stand up, to have the courage to call for a ceasefire and ensure no other civilian, no other children, nobody is killed.
Paris Gurtsayanis, STV News.
To other stories in the West, and a man has been charged after the death of a cyclist who was struck by a van last year. The collision happened on the A806 Initiative Road in Kirkintilloch on the 9th of June. The cyclist, a 50-year-old man, died following the crash. The 63-year-old van driver will appear in court at a later date. As Glasgow gears up for the World Indoor Athletics Championships next weekend, the newly refurbished track has been unveiled. The Emirates Arena will play host to the three-day sporting event with athletes from 130 countries.
Glasgow is one of the world's top events destinations, particularly sporting events. We just held the UCI World Cycling Championships last summer, so here we go again. We're ready and prepared. But more than that, Glasgow has a great love for sport, as do all Glaswegians. And what's really important is the legacy of all these sporting events that we have.
Glasgow businesses are warning raising the price of parking will drive people away from the city centre. The council backed an increase in parking costs on Thursday in a bid to plug a huge financial hole in their budget. But hospitality owners and those who regularly park in and around the city say it will put people off visiting Glasgow. Brandon Cook reports.
Lunchtime at this cafe in Glasgow, and the place is filling up with visitors from across the city. Owner Giovanna says many of her customers use the car to get here and worries an increase in parking outside will drive business away.
If they made parking free in the city centre, they would drive people to the city centre. They would invite and entice new business to come into our city and ultimately grow the economy of our city. So this is going to be a no-win for anybody at the end of the day.
Across the road at this church, Shona volunteers at a mother and toddlers group. She says the majority of mums rely on the car.
One of the things a lot of our families have said is that one thing that puts them off coming is the price of parking is just far too expensive to come every week. And you're paying currently nearly £12 for 3 hours. It's just so expensive.
Glasgow City Council agreed to raise the cost of parking in the city centre during their budget vote last Thursday. We've not been told exact prices, but what we do know is the council expects to rake in an extra £1.2 million for putting the price of parking permits up, an extra £600,000 for multi-storeys. Free city centre on-street parking is moving to 10 p.m. They're also looking at increasing the price of parking fines. The minimum payment was £30 if paid within 2 weeks. That discount is moving to £50.
This year's budget was always going to be a contentious one. The local authority hopes that over the next 3 years, increasing the cost of parking will raise nearly £8 million. That money, of course, could be crucial in helping to plug a near £107 million gap in their budget.
Challenge I think the City Council faces is that the more that they increase the charges, the possibility arises that the less that they earn. They're already having to forecast a reduction in the use of the car parks because of increased charges. There's a tipping point, and we may be getting to that point where people will simply go elsewhere and the council will actually lose revenue rather than gain it.
Despite concerns, the majority of changes are set to come into force this April. Brandon Cook, STV News.
Here's Raman with a sport and a significant weekend of football, Raman.
Sure was, John. Celtic have been top of the Premiership all season, but that changed after the weekend's games. Good evening to you all. James Tavernier says the Rangers players always believed they could catch Celtic as the Ibrox club moved to the top of the Premiership. While Philippe Clement's side defeated St Johnstone, the champions dropped points at home to Kilmarnock. Ronnie Charters reports.
It was a table-topping party in Perth for Rangers as they moved to the summit of the Scottish Premiership. Philippe Clement's men, with momentum and belief behind them, are now the ones to catch. And the leader in the dressing room believes they've got what it takes to win the Premiership.
We always had belief in our team, the players that we had. Obviously, it took the change, and the gaffer nose came in and really up the bar with the way we're playing, the demand that he wants from us all, and we just got to continue, but not be complacent, and just keep demanding because still a long way to go.
Rangers took to the field knowing the prize on offer, top spot in the Premiership. Mohamed Diamande sent them on their way on his first league start for the club. 3 points were secured after Rangers were awarded 2 penalties in the final 11 minutes, both after VAR checks. James Tavernier stepping up twice, with the captain moving on to 120 goals in the red, white and blue. 2 points is now the gap at the top of the table, with 12 games remaining.
Every day, everybody's super focused, hard-working. So I didn't have any problem with that in these 4 months. That's the first time in a team that I never had to smack somebody who's not focused anymore or not motivated. So no, it's a really important thing. But they all feel that they are in a special story and that it can be a really special story.
Whilst Rangers continued to motor, 24 hours earlier, Celtic stuttered, drawing 1-1 with Kilmarnock. Brendan Rodgers admitting he's not surprised his side dropped more points, as another lacklustre performance gave the title advantage to their rivals. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Well, Hearts made it 11 wins out of 12 after defeating Motherwell 2-0 on Saturday. Lawrence Shankland and Kenneth Vargas, the scorers. Hibs boss Nick Montgomery believes his side should have won all 3 points as they drew 2-2 with Aberdeen, and Livingston are now 3 points behind second bottom Ross County after their 1-0 win over St Mirren. County lost to Dundee. To boxing, and Josh Taylor has vowed to put Jack Catterall back under his rock and back to bed before setting his sights on reclaiming world titles. The fighters, who are to go toe-to-toe in a rematch in April, had to be pulled apart at a fiery media conference in Edinburgh. Ollie Dickinson was there.
It's billed as hate runs deep, and it took just moments for things to boil over between Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. A controversial first fight between the pair 2 years ago saw Taylor emerge victorious on the judges' scorecards, but left some questioning the decision. Now, they'll do it again.
Well, I would put this to bed, put Jack to bed, you know, and put him back under his rock and move on with my career, you know, and look back to getting my world titles back, you know, either at 140 or 147. So, yeah, this is one that needs to be done first, you know, because it would just keep following me, and all the little comments would keep following me. So it needs to be done and put to bed and move on.
Standing across from Taylor is a fighter who believes he won the first time around, and Jack Catterall says he won't be leaving anything to chance in April.
It was a frustrating time, and looking back, it is frustrating. I've kind of put that chapter to bed now, but as far as Taylor's concerned, he's talked a lot of over the last couple of years, so I'm excited to put him to bed.
The last bout between the pair was for the undisputed super lightweight world title. This time, it's pride on the line. Taylor had to vacate 3 belts after suffering an injury before defeat to Teofimo Lopez cost him the 4th.
I wasn't the best on the night, and he was much better than me on the night, you know, and end of, you know, no excuses. He was better than me, the better man on the night won. So, yeah, fair play to him. You know, I didn't turn up, and at this level, if you don't turn up 100% your best, you're going to get beaten. That's exactly what happened.
741 days after their first clash, Taylor and Catterall has all the makings of a classic when the first bell rings in April. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
It's like me and John. Rugby, and Hamish Watson has been recalled to the Scotland squad for this weekend's Six Nations match against England, while Blair Kinghorn returns. Edinburgh flanker Watson was left out for the first 2 games of the Championship. Kinghorn was ruled out after sustaining an injury playing for Toulouse. WP Nell, Magnus Bradbury and Alex Craig have also joined the group. Athletics, and Laura Muir, Gemma Reiki and Josh Kerr have been named in the Great Britain and Northern Ireland squad for the World Athletics Indoor Championships in Glasgow next month. Muir warmed up for the event by winning gold in the 3,000 metres at the UK Indoor Championship yesterday. At the same meeting, Reiki claimed gold in the 800 metres. Kerr will travel to Scotland after breaking the world record over 2 miles in New York last week.
That's a track that I trained at for the most throughout my career, and I was based in Glasgow for over a decade, so
it's a very, very special place to me. So it's going to be, surreal competing at a global championships in Scotland. We've never had that before on the track, so literally once in a lifetime opportunity to do that. I didn't want to miss it. It fits in the plans for Paris, so it's just very, very exciting to be there.
It's so special to make a GB team, and it's so hard these days to get one of those vests, and we can't take it for granted anymore. So it's just amazing to be on that team, and I know it'll be a really good team going to that championships, and there's going to be so many medals, and I think it'll be a really inspiring championship, not only for the public but for the athletes there.
One final piece of football news. Former Rangers boss Michael Beale has been sacked as manager of Sunderland after just 12 games in charge. That's all we sport tonight, folks. See you again tomorrow.
All right, thanks very much, Rahman. OK, let's find out how the weather's looking now with Sean.
A spell of sea air will be followed by a strong chance of you have to try these. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Well, it's been feeling quite spring-like at times during the weekend. Yesterday, in that sunshine, temperatures about 10, 11 degrees Celsius. Today, 9 or 10 degrees Celsius. A lot of dry and bright weather, especially in the eastern parts. But it has been clouding over from the west through the afternoon. We'll see rain spreading its way eastwards in the next couple of hours for many parts. And temperatures will stay very mild tonight, probably during the early hours, about 8 or 9 degrees Celsius in some spots. We'll go into a warm sector. Tomorrow morning, though, we'll see a cold front going through. That brings another spell of rain. So quite a wet start to tomorrow. But then that clears away south and eastwards, probably by about midday, and then we go into much sunnier skies for the afternoon. But there'll be lots of showers coming in. Some of those will be heavy and perhaps a touch wintry over higher ground. Very mild start to tomorrow. Temperatures coming down to about 5 to 7 degrees by the end of the afternoon. Chillier air coming in along with those heavy and rather blustery showers driven on by a brisk old westerly wind. Wednesday we'll see a spell of rain going through, so a very wet start to Wednesday, probably the most unsettled day of the week, and also gales around parts of the Hebrides as well. So we'll see that rain going through during the morning, blustery showers following on in the afternoon, and feeling quite chilly out in that wind. But generally turning colder. Thursday, Friday, we go into more of a north to northwesterly airflow. So lots of showers around towards the end of the week as well. Again, some will be heavy. Temperatures 5 or 6 degrees. Some of the showers wintry on the hills. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's all from us for the moment. But John, you're back with Scotland tonight and more on Scotland's housing crisis.
Well, you just stole my thunder from me. I was about to say that, yeah, but you know, if you want to say it, that's fine. Yes, more on the housing crisis. We hear from the Housing Minister as well. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Yes, tune in. Good night.